Well, hey there, Sesha. It's so exciting to see your face on screen. I know we've seen each other at the Coach Training Intensive, but it's been a little while, and I just wanted to share your story because you've got some exciting things going on with your coaching.
Oh, I'm so
So
happy to see you as well and happy to share.
yeah, so remind me when you went through CTI.
I went through CTI. I'm guessing that I was your last live session back in April. Would that have been 18?
2019.
April 19. It all becomes a blur because I've been on such a great learning journey, and that was the starting point.
Yeah, so you went through the Coach Training Intensive, and then you decided to go through certification. What made you decide to take that next step when you finished the Coach Training Intensive weekend?
Actually, I was one of those who was sold before I even went to the CTI. So I had made my decision that I wanted to go all the way through. And it was only solidified after that weekend of just the energy around it, the starting point of being there with a whole community
Yeah.
of others that I would be on this learning journey with, and just the word intensive, just how much of a leap forward I was able to experience just in 2 days.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't realize what you can learn in a short period of time. And I think that's even true, like with coaching, like how much you can accomplish in a laser session. I mean, just in moving forward. And I think that's kind of the power of coaching when you learn how to do it, when you get that structure, like a Sarah really kind of giving you a structure of how to do the session. And so you went through certification. And what caused me to say, let me reach out to Sesha and just, I want her story shared with our community and people who are on that journey or thinking about being on the journey for coaching is that you recently got your credential from the International Coaching Federation. So that's fairly quick. I mean, you're kind of like me. When I when I finally made the decision to dive in, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this and then this. So you did CTI, then you got your certification from the CAP Institute, and then what happened?
I worked with a mentor coach, and I had been all the way through building up those coaching hours. And I learned
Mhm.
that through CPAC that there really is just no substitute. You can learn the theories, you can study all of the wonderful materials that I learned, but unless you put it to practice. So I was on a real disciplined approach to continue to practice what I was learning the whole way through. So I think
Mhm.
doing that helped me with being a little bit, as you said, on a quicker timeline.
Yeah.
But it was actually, I was very much influenced by the instructors saying that, I remember distinctly in one of the sessions, somebody said, I would like to have more ability to listen to expert coaches so that I can learn from it. And it was LaFern, one of the instructors, who said, that's all great and it's really a valuable lesson to observe, but it's really the getting in there and practicing. And she kind of, I was kind of sitting back, not volunteering a lot to
Mhm.
practice in those sessions. Just it's intimidating. You're under observation by your peers. But
Yeah.
when she said that, it really encouraged me to make the most of it. And there's so many opportunities to speak up, to be coached and to coach. So I really jumped in and did that. And then it inspired me to just continue to build those log hours, not just to pursue that end goal of a certification, but to become a masterful coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. This whole idea that we learn by taking action actually has transformed my life because I always joke that I'm a recovering procrastinator and I can overanalyze. And so I could relate to the person you mentioned saying, yeah, I just want to listen to other coaches, which you can gain a lot from that. But you are absolutely right that it's by actually starting to coach, like using what you're learning and making mistakes or going, oh, that didn't really work, and letting go of some of those expectations, because I think sometimes we feel like, okay, people have to have a breakthrough and aha every single time. And sometimes it takes a little work to get there. on that journey. But then also, if you're practicing, you're learning what does work, like what does help create those breakthroughs.
Yes.
What was the biggest thing you learned in deciding, hey, I'm going to get as many client hours as I can in order to become more masterful as a coach?
I think what I learned honestly was when I got into the mentor coaching phase.
Mhm.
Um, we decided on a learning path for me would be a lot of recordings
Mhm.
that she would analyze, and it was humbling because again, I thought, oh, I'm CPEC certified now. I've reached this level, but there was still a lot of refinement and
Yes.
ability for her to continue teaching and mentoring me as
Yep.
she should have been. So those recorded sessions and then having somebody else observe
Yeah.
one-on-one, which I was already getting a lot of through CPEC, but it was just the more fine tuning that I think was really helped me grow. And I also learned from that that the growing doesn't stop. So I am challenging myself now to say, okay, you were after that certification. It's a professional accolade. Of course, it went on LinkedIn, but honestly, the pursuit of being a masterful coach and keeping those skills current and live. So I'm already looking at what are the things that I'm doing in support of that.
Yeah, that is so good. And I feel that way 18 years after my first coach training. Like I'm still learning and growing. I think that has to be the approach we take overall. Sesha, what is your background? Like what is your professional background before you came to coaching?
I am actually was an engineer by trade, and I had a really kind of an eclectic professional background. I worked across a lot of different business sectors, anywhere from consumer goods to banking, healthcare. But in that, I also worked across a lot of different business sectors, so large corporations into all the way down to startups. So I kind of noticed a common thread of what was really interesting to me was the flourishment of individuals in all of those different settings. So I
Um,
took a real interest not only in coaching, but also in facilitating and training workshops for professionals. And one of the things that I find really interesting is that the coaching, I bring that with me into absolutely everything I'm doing. When I'm facilitating, in a sense, anything that I can bring to be that kind of sage on the stage by embarking wisdom on them is not even a quarter as impactful as them having their own insight
yeah.
and learning something because it really clicked with them and that you took or asked them to do some reflecting or you asked a powerful question and put them into a group. So a lot of my successes and some of the good feedback that I'm getting about the workshops that I deliver are, I know, coming from the fact that I have a coaching bent to the way I'm bringing in group facilitation.
Oh, so good. So engineering is so interesting. Is there any element of your background as an engineer that has served you as a coach?
I think it's that I'm highly aware that it can be a barrier in that engineers tend to problem solve.
Mhm.
They're very analytical about putting pieces together and then coming up with the solution. So, in a sense, the art of reverse engineering, that mindset and way of thinking, has come into play. So, it's really about being more inquisitive and curious and asking those powerful questions
Yeah.
so that somebody else can arrive at that insight. So I did honestly, I just have to say that I had to program myself. I will say, as a consultant, the business side, so many of those elements that we covered in CPAC, how to drive your business, how to market, the disciplines needed,
Mhm.
and it definitely comes through the engineering side.
That is so interesting because I think um, a lot of people come from professions or they have to unlearn some things. I typically hear that from psychologists, licensed therapists, psychiatrists that come through the program, because although it's similar, it's different. And so there's sometimes some conflict there, but I love your description of engineering. I've also had this come up with educators, people who are taught how to teach people what to do, not necessarily to believe that they have their answers, and I'm just asking questions to pull it out of them. So I love that you see how it works, particularly with the marketing, but in terms of kind of the core of what coaching is, having to learn how to navigate that differently than the way you were trained initially in your career. That's and that takes a lot of intention too, to not say, no, this is the way. This is how I learned it, and I know this coaching thing wants to do it differently, but I want to do it that way.
For sure. And my own experience of that intentionality
Mhm.
of reframing and thinking about things a different way. It's all the same things that we bring into our coaching sessions too. So it's nice that I've walked the walk
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. So when you went through your ICF credential process, can you just tell me a little bit about how that worked for you? Like, what did you have to do? And was it hard? Was it frustrating? Like, for somebody that's just thinking about, yeah, I want to get my ICF credential, what could you tell them about that process?
I would say it's a little bit acronym heavy. So when you get onto their website, it's hard to navigate a little bit as to what track that you're on and what are the whole list of requirements. But once you get through that and they're there to support, it's just kind of a logistics exercise. What I was delighted to find was that there was so much cohesion between the skills, the competencies, the requirements. It wasn't like unlearning, because being an ICF certified program, CPAC, it was I could see the alignment was very strong to ICF, yet the differentiation of being a positive psychology focus, that was all there. And I could speak for hours and hours about how that differentiator is very in line with my whole consultancy. So
Mm.
the idea that I was talking about, workshops that I facilitate, they're all very strength based, positive psychology focused. So the idea that I was schooled and trained and have had the ability to become masterful at bringing a positive psychology bent in a one-on-one session and being able to expand that across my entire thing. So long-winded answer about ICF is don't get if you're going down that path, stick with that little bit of discomfort of kind of navigating your way through a lot of terms, maybe weird screens that you have to figure out. It's all there, and it's a straightforward path once you figure out what you need to do. And if you come to ICF through CPAC, you're going to see that you're already there skill wise. You're very prepared to cross the finish line over into ICF.
You just make my whole, I like got butterflies. I'm just so excited hearing you say that that was your experience, because that's what we've always tried to do in how we've put together the program. And I believe strongly in the core competencies of the ICF. I also just feel strongly that if you create a program in a fairly new industry, I mean, I know, maybe it's 25, 30 years old now, but that's new. I mean, compared to engineering or accounting or even
Sure.
personal training or financial planning, right? And we have wanted to submit ourselves and our program to a bigger organization to say, hey, this isn't just something we came up with, but we're agreeing to a set of standards. I think is really important. And if at some point it requires, like coaching starts to require licensure or something that's regulated, I think it's so much better to already be aligned with an organization that globally is respected and has a set of standards that we can all agree upon. So that's incredible to just hear
And
your perspective on that.
I think it's interesting that you talk about it being regulated. Having gone through the discipline that was taught about, even on the ethics side through CPAC, and then reinforcing that learning through ICF, I really, without that being the case, that it's not heavily regulated, I feel regulated as a coach. I take
That's
those
good.
things really
Yeah.
seriously, the ethics side of it and what you can and cannot do as a coach. And I remember in the coaching intensive, really learning the difference between what the role of a coach is and, more importantly, what the role of a coach isn't. So that has really helped me in my practice. I feel that I'm set up to really serve in a way that doesn't teeter into a malpractice, even though the laws aren't there yet for me to get like officially sued. But I do feel a heavy, heavy sense of responsibility towards the properness,
Yeah.
and that came from both. So,
I think that's where the ethics come in, and recognizing that coaching is not counseling, it's not therapy, it's not even, mentoring or consulting, but more my concern always is getting into the counseling and the therapy. And you're right, we talk about that from the very beginning because I think it's so very important um, to adhere to those standards and to take them seriously. So thank you for just sharing that, and also the side about positive psychology, because I think there is a research basis for how to thrive, how to work through challenges and be more resilient, how to use your strengths, what happens when we do that, what happens when we're happy, or how to set a goal. I mean, that's one of my favorite classes in CPEC is around goal setting and goal getting.
absolutely. For me, there's such a fascination with, as we've studied and learned how to bring that into a one on one coaching session, those are the very same things that organizations are trying to bring into their team meetings and into their one on ones with their employees. Because more and more, the idea of human flourishment, it's the one and the same, whether you're working on a personal issue or a professional issue one on one with a coach. If you were to able to bring some of that in thoughts in and train managers
Mhm.
on how to really have that flourishment focus on what's strong and not what's wrong
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
organizations.
I bet that's one of your quotes that you use in your in your
It
workshops. I like
most absolutely is.
it's so easy for us to focus on what's wrong with us as
Yes.
opposed to, yeah, what
I can share the slide with the picture that goes with it as well.
I love that. So just two more questions, and one is just around any encouragement for those who are already coaching. They're perhaps been through CTI, they might be in CPEC or even graduated. And then I would love for you to share for those who are thinking about taking that leap and learning about coaching. So what, from your experience, what do you have to say to that person who's right now like thinking about getting their credential? Maybe they're thinking about mentor coaching or CPEC. What are your thoughts for them? What should they be thinking about?
So those who have been through CTI but are kind of thinking about, maybe should I continue on this path, go through maybe CPAC or all the way through to ICF, I would think reflect deeply on the experience that you had in CTI. I think I mentioned before, that's intensive. There was something very intense, I would imagine, that you experienced as well going through that. If you tapped into that, and it's an individual answer, but is that something that you want to continue to build from? I felt as though I learned so much from that, but the ability to stack different learnings through CPAC and then again through ICF, and the ability to go through a mentor coach, it's almost as if you maybe trained for a marathon and ran a marathon, but then you got really interested in overall fitness of your body, and you went and you worked with the personal trainer and worked on, in some sessions, on different muscle groups, and then when you came out of it, you had this mastery of overall fitness and wellness. So I kind of use that analogy to, if you want to continue. The marathon in itself was amazing and showed you things and whatever, but if you've got that yearning to say, you know what, I want that, I want to become well-rounded, I want overall, then I would say then that there's your answer.
Yeah. 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 And then for those who haven't even taken the leap, but they just kind of like you notice this thread that they have an interest in helping people flourish. And what is it that empowers that? And they think maybe it's coaching, but should I make that leap? What do you say to them?
Um, I would say the coach intensive is a really nice way in a smaller, tighter investment of time
Yeah.
to really explore something like that, or something bite size. There's lots of programs out there. I would encourage you to look and see what might be a fit. But for me, and I don't think it's that dissimilar to many that went through, my interest in it was I'm asked a lot. I mentor a lot. I'm being asked by a lot of young professionals to have coffee, and I'm actually quite sought after. So I'm a great coach already. But getting there and really understanding that what I was doing was more mentoring, and what coaching really looks like, that whole notion that it's less about you and what you know and more about helping them facilitate their own breakthrough.
Yeah.
That I thought was fascinating. So I'm so passionate about and grateful for the life lesson to be able to look at engaging with another person, whether it's my kids or a colleague or a coaching client, with this belief about their own ability. That was life changing for me. So I don't know if I can even give a biased answer, because I advocate that everybody be able to look at the world through that lens. So
I love it because coaching, I think it's a lifestyle. I think it's a different way of seeing things. When you said it changed your life, I know I said just two more questions, but how did it change your life?
I was I really thought that my value in my relationships and to other people was the wisdom and advice that I had to share and offer. I always, as soon as I was conversing with somebody, my brain would automatically go into, okay, what do I know? How can I share? How can I take what I experienced and package it up in an advice or some action items that this person can benefit from? And the heart and the intent was there, and that's why I do think that coaching is right for me. But the approach, in that it was all me and all my ideas and all of my solutions, that got turned upside down on its head, and I'm forever grateful for that. So I have a radar in every conversation and a mantra: less of me, more of them. And it's I can tell I've learned so much because I was going through the world with the lens of what I know, and now I'm opening up to what others know, and it's been really eye-opening. I do, as you might know or not know, I'm doing a lot of work in diversity and inclusion and helping teams and individuals and D&I councils within organizations really find their way through this important work. And I think one of the reasons why I'm being asked and sought after by certain clients for this work is it's that very coaching approach. I don't come in and tell an organization what the best practices are. I ask questions. The first question I say is, why is this work important, and how is it valuable to you? And surprisingly, each organization has a different response to that. And that's all coaching.
That's incredible. And I've heard more and more. I've even had more and more requests this year in particular around how coaching applies in that space, particularly with so much going on in the racial and social justice area of, how do we open up and hear one another? And then I also hear you saying, yeah, you can come from your perspective, but everybody has a perspective. And
Yeah.
asking the very simple question, why does this matter to you?
Yes.
Is a way of saying what you think matters, not just what I think. And then how can we get towards whatever that vision or that goal is?
Yes. Yep. And there are consultants that are more mentor consultants, but I'm a coach consultant. And I've actually said that in client engagements when I'm pitching for work or when I'm being asked to participate in an RFP for D&I work. And I use the word, I'm a coaching. I take a very coaching approach to consultancy because I really believe it has to be intrinsic from the organization what the solutions are. You see a lot of themes. And
Mhm.
I also believe that the heavy lifting of ideas needs to come from you. If a consultant comes in and says, do it this way, it's not going to carry the same weight after the consultant leaves as if you and your own teams were inspired to think deeply and introspectively and come up with your own solutions. And I'm there to help you think deeply and introspectively to arrive at those solutions. So you see all the parallels. You can't take the
Absolutely.
coach out anymore.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing you say is exactly what we always say, which is how does someone take ownership? They have their own aha moment from that powerful question. And when
Yes,
they come up with that answer, they said the answer. So they have to own that answer. It's not you telling them what the answer is. Um,
yes,
so I love what you're saying about how that applies even in consulting to create the buy-in and the ownership of no, we came up with this. She helped us figure out what to come up with, but we came up with it, which of course contributes to one, the inspiration and then the motivation to execute on it and carry it through. That's
yes.
oh, I just love hearing your story. I can't wait to hear more of what's happening and how things are unfolding for you. And I have to also say, when we talk about coaching being a lifestyle, you have such a presence that is inviting,
Oh,
and
thank you.
that's so important to coaching. That that sense of comfort and that the person is really listening and that sense of calm.
Yes. And we've all, as all of us, have to figure out how to achieve that over digital through a camera lens. And but there again, there's intentionality in that too, because of some of the things that we learned. That it's not just the nonverbals. It's not just the verbals. It's the nonverbals too.
Absolutely. Sesha, I am so proud that you are a graduate of the CAP Institute. I'm so proud of what you're doing,
Well,
how
thank
you're using coaching, positive psychology, as well as your overall background for all these years and blending it all together to make an impact in the world. And I just appreciate you being willing to spend some time with me and just share
you.
your
Oh,
story
thank
for
you.
others to hear.
It was absolutely a pleasure. And you say you're proud. Well, I'm really proud to be an alum because I know who else has graduated there. So it's I'm on the shoulders of some really great coaches that are doing amazing things. So it's a big part of my brand, and I'm very proud of it.
Ah, I love it. Well, thank you so, so much.